My Etch a Sketch is that. Okay, it's 7 o'clock and time to begin our Baxter City Council meeting. We welcome you if you're joining us. At this time, we'll look for the roll caller, Mr. Administrator.
Yes. Councilmember Cross.
Here.
Councilmember Holman.
Here.
Councilmember Licio.
Here.
Councilmember Tabbitt.
Here.
And Mayor Olson.
Here.
All right.
Okay, seeing we're all here, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you. A little awkward doing that, but it's necessary, I think, to do that. So at this time, we have two presentations for the council tonight. And the first one on the agenda is the Community Action Director, Mr. Badeau. So I see he's here. We'll turn it over to Dave and let him go ahead and make his presentation. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman. I'll apologize right now. The family just got home and they're making quite a ruckus upstairs. So you'll probably hear some children running around and making noise. But I wanted to reach out to you guys and talk with you briefly about community action and what we're hoping to do this summer as far as the 4th of July. In the past, both cities, Brainerd and Baxter, have helped support the fireworks portion of our 4th of July festivities. And that's something that we feel very strongly that we would like to have again this year. We're formulating plans as far as what that means. Obviously, there's probably going to have to be some changes to that. Our normal format is something that might be difficult for us to achieve. But one of the things that we've done at Community Action in our meetings that we've been holding weekly as opposed to monthly is slowly kind of formulating things as we go, taking a look at what the governor's doing and trying to adjust what we feel we can accomplish and what it is that we can do for the community. We feel very strongly that it's very important this year, probably more than most years, that we give some kind of reprieve or some kind of stress relief for the citizens of our area. And so we'd like to have some kind of celebration. Now, what that means, I can't say for sure. We've got some fun ideas as to how to do some different events that might be a little different than what we've normally done, including the parade, that sort of thing. Obviously, having large groups of people gathering together is still something that we're not confident in being able to do. So we're taking a 30 days out approach on the festivities, and coming June 1st, we're going to make our final decision. However, in order to do that, we have to find if there is still support from the cities in terms of the funding for those fireworks, and if not, formulate what it is that we can do differently with that. So.
Mayor, you're muted.
I did that for Mark. I'm sorry. So the some talk that was going on, you were talking about, or somebody was talking about maybe a mutual location for fireworks that many people could see. Have you tossed that around anymore? Is that still in the hopper? Or?
Yeah, so we've been working with our fireworks provider and coming up with some alternative locations. We have a couple that we've thought about. We're trying to kind of keep that close to the vest just in case it is a scenario where the police ask us to have it be non-disclosed. Sure. But we are looking at multiple different locations that could possibly work. That's something we have to kind of hammer down a little bit as well. One of the big things is that we want to make sure that we're shooting them off as high as humanly possible because we'd like to try and keep people's ability, if they so choose, to stay at a distance. So there will be some differences as far as previously, we've ran them with music, we've ran them to where, there's a lot of low lining effects. That stuff will obviously probably be changing this year, and that will change the scope and the scale of it. But in terms of locations, yeah, we're definitely trying to find something that works. If there is the case that our police force says, you know what, we really don't feel comfortable with having that group gathering down there. And again, it may fall on to the governor as well. The governor may say that that's just not a possibility. So we have had multiple discussions about a handful of different locations.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else questions? Okay, Brad, where are we at with this then?
As council is aware, we do have the money budgeted for the fireworks. I believe Mr. Badeau is seeking a reconfirmation of that. I don't think that you have to take any action per se, but I do know that in conversation with a few of you in this regard, if there's not an event, obviously the money isn't going to be expended. I know that the city of Brainerd City Council did consider this last night and reconfirmed with the notion that payment will be made after the commitment is made to move forward with the fireworks. So if that is the consensus, I would just look for a nod, and we'll take that as a directive as administration. So
basically, if fireworks happen, we're in. If they don't, we might reconsider. Is that?
Well, we just wouldn't. There would be no event to sponsor at that point. So
Is that the consensus here? Give me a thumbs up or down, or looks like we got preponderance of thumbs up, Dave. So we'll run with that for now.
A question. If we have to postpone, Dave, and everyone else, would there ever be any kind of a chance of making it like a Labor Day weekend celebration?
We haven't went so far as to make any movement into that stream of consciousness yet. We're going to be making a decision here pretty quick. One of the things that goes along with our 4th of July is the arts in the park as well. We are probably going to push that event back, and we have had discussions about that. That's not a for sure thing. We haven't made any solid decisions on that. We've kind of taken the stance that, it's almost like a line in the sand, that we feel like come the 4th of July, people are going to want some kind of relief and some kind of celebration to at least show some resilience. And we want to try and give that if possible.
Oh, I totally agree. I just thought if we have the funds there and we can't spend them on the 4th, can we spend them at another time for a city celebration?
Sure. Okay, I think we're in at this point, Dave, and thanks for coming and sharing your time with us.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay. Next thing on our agenda is Kennedy. I see her. I think that's her in the corner there, and maybe that's her mom too. I'm not sure.
Yes, this is that.
Okay. I visited with you over the last 2 months, but I've never seen your face, so I don't know for sure what you look like. We were very, very impressed with your efforts and your work. And I know back in March, I corresponded with you and telling you that we'd like to hear from you if and when this thing ever ends. Well, it hasn't ended, but we do have a way to visit with you anyway. So this is going to work out fine. So interested in hearing your thoughts and how it went and so on and so forth, and give the council a chance to ask you some questions. So go ahead, take it away.
So when I first started the petition, my mom was helping me on like deciding what to do. So far we have 1,457 have signed in all, and 165 people from Baxter. My petition.
Mhm.
Chickens.
Yeah. Did you, just out of curiosity, was that all done on internet, or did you do door to door, or what was the process?
We did pass out some flyers, but mostly on the internet.
Okay. So I assumed you weren't knocking any doors in London, so that's what.
Yeah, I was so impressed with all the signatures that you got from all over. That was really awesome. I have a question though. I'm curious, did you talk to anyone who thought it wasn't a good idea for Baxter, and what did they say?
We haven't talked to anybody since the quarantine started. We haven't been able to talk to anybody about why they wouldn't want it.
Okay. Well, I'm sure proud of you for taking this on. This is a big project.
Council, questions, comments?
Another reason I think that we should allow chickens in Baxter is because they take care of ticks. And if you guys have a lot of ticks in your backyard, the chickens will eat the ticks.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Lots of people already have them.
Mm.
So, and you think the eggs taste a whole lot better from chickens in your own yard?
We read in a magazine about they're healthier than store-bought.
Yeah, they're healthier than store-bought eggs.
Okay.
Well, I'm
Anybody
all
else?
about that.
Any other
But
questions?
what are you hoping that this council will do? Change
the law and allow chickens in Baxter.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that the council all gets a chance to ask what they'd like to ask or hear what they want to hear before we move on.
Well, I'll just jump in and congratulate you for the good work and reiterate the idea that you should be proud of what you've done so far. I think this is really cool that you were able to get to this point. I guess I'm just interested to hear where this goes.
We'll keep you in touch.
Well, we're counting on it. And we'll keep you in touch. How's that for a deal?
Good. Okay.
All right.
I think the city administrator explained to you what the process is from this point, ma'am. And so if we get a thumbs up from the council to send it, it would go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, who would actually handle the public hearing and input on that. And then they would make a recommendation, would end up coming back to the council. So, that's no decision tonight. It doesn't work quite that fast. Everybody, to somebody else's question earlier, the reason for the public hearing is to give people who might not think it's such a good idea a chance to talk also. And so that's the purpose of that. So Josh, Mr. Doty there, wave Josh. That's the person who will be running with this and probably keeping in touch with you, along with maybe the city administrator, to where we're at and when those particular meetings might happen. And we will keep you informed. So thank you very much for joining us and taking the time and doing what you've done thus far. And we will be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Brad, any changes or additions to the agenda?
There's one addition, game around 5 o'clock. It's item 9C, which is a review of the local emergency and our COVID-19 operations plan. And then just another item, point of clarification, 7V under consent agenda. The title is correct, but in the RCA, it does make reference to the appointment of the departed employee. Just want to note that it is the appointment of Miss Brenda Brooks for the position.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Were there any public comments, Brad?
There were none received, Mayor.
There were none received. Okay, we will forge ahead with the consent agenda. The following items are considered non-controversial by staff and are recommended to be read and passed in one motion. Any council person, staff, citizen, or meeting attendee can request one or more items be pulled from the consent agenda. And the item will be pulled and addressed immediately after the passage of the consent agenda. Otherwise, the following items will be passed in one motion. A, approve city council minutes from May 5th, 2020. B, approve the payment of bills and finance report. C, approve resolution 2020-033, approving a conditional use permit amendment, allowing an expansion of existing accessory structure, area greater than the maximum of 1,800 square feet allowed by ordinance for property located at 3669 Cedar Scenic Road. D, accept Utilities Commission minutes from May 11th, 2020. E, approve the 2018 Cypress Drive Improvements Project, BNSF Railroad Crossing Surface Partial Payment number 6. F, approve Bolton and Mink proposal for engineering services 2020 Pacer ratings of city trails. G, approve 2020 South Interceptor, North Forest View, and Forest View Stormwater Outlet Improvements Project Change Order number 1. H, approve Crow Wing County Power right-of-way easement for lift station number 24. I, approve 2020 Fairview Road, Golf Course Drive, Excelsior Road and Trail Connection, and 2020 Oakwood Drive Trail Connection Improvements Project Partial Pay Estimate number 1. J, approve BNSF Railway Company Preliminary Engineering Service Agreement for the 2021 Inglewood Drive Railway Crossing and associated roadway improvement project. K, approve County State Aid 48 Railway Crossing Improvements, Crow Wing County BNSF final invoice. Approve lift station maintenance plan update 2020 to 2040. M, approve lift station number 11 reconstruction project change order number 2. And approve 2019 Mapleton Road, Jasperwood Drive, and Knollwood Drive area improvements project change order number 5. O, approve 2019 mill and overlay and full depth reclamation improvements project change order number 9. P, approve 2019 mill and overlay and full depth reclamation improvements project partial pay estimate number 8. Q, approve Ziegler Cat 3-year customer support agreement for the water treatment plant emergency generator. R, accept planning and zoning commission minutes from May 12th, 2020. S, approve lawful gambling permit for Ducks Unlimited to conduct a raffle on June 22nd, 2020 at Dondlinger Automotive. TMN fee schedule for commercial water meters due to implementation of ultrasonic water meters. You approve appointments to the seasonal positions of park attendant, street and utilities maintenance, and roadside mower. V, appoint Miss Brenda Brooks to the finance specialist position and authorize staff to commence the process to fill the receptionist/cashier position. Look for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Zach. Second by Tim. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Cross. Cross. You're muted.
I'm hearing your heartbeat, I think.
Or somebody's got an ultrasound going.
That's her.
You find it?
Well, we work on that.
Gets the rest of them.
I think he could be force unmuted by whoever the host is.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking Todd and Mr. DeBoer.
Yes, I attempted that, but I think it maybe just prompts him.
Huh.
Three meetings and our first glitch.
No, not bad.
City attorney, does it have to be a voice or can it be a thumb or?
Oh, it has to, in order to conduct the meeting, you need to be able to see each other and hear each other, so.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Good grief. It was hiding on me. Okay, that would be a thumbs up yes vote.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Holman,
Yes.
Licio,
Yes.
Tabit,
Yes.
and Olson.
And yes. Well, we got that. Okay, moving along to other business. A, public hearing, resolution 2020-034, about vacating a portion of a 5-foot wide drainage and utility easement on lot 7, block 4 of Cedardale South. Is that Trevor or who is that?
That's me.
Oh, Josh, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is a request for vacation of drainage utility easements. Specifically, the applicant has requested an administrative subdivision application, which would allow the backyard of 2 residential single-family properties to be adjusted and have the lot line moved basically 30 feet from one backyard to another backyard. In doing that administrative lot line adjustment application, it requires a portion of the existing drainage utility easement to be vacated and then reestablished to follow the new lot line arrangement. So the request this evening is for the council to hold a public hearing, see if there's any comments, and then consider the attached resolution for consideration of approval by the council. Happy to answer any questions.
Just trying to be so correct here.
You're muted, Mayor. There
How
you
am I
go.
doing? What do
You're
you,
good.
what do you think of me now? All right, we'll open the public hearing at 7:22. See if anybody has anything they want to add to this. Seeing none, close at 7:22:15 and look for a motion.
Before a motion, Mr. Doty, did we receive any written items regarding this public hearing?
No, we did not.
I'll move for approval.
Motion by Zach.
I'll second that since I was at the meeting where this was all discussed.
Here you go. Second by Mark. Any further discussion? All in favor, roll call.
Cross,
Here, present. Yes.
It wasn't multiple choice.
Holman,
Yes.
Licio,
Yes.
Abbott,
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes, thank you. Okay, B, consider to provide a 20% credit of the 2019-2020 on sale intoxicating Sunday on sale 3-2 beer, wine, and on sale brewers tap room fees to be applied against the 2020-2021 renewal fee. Did Brad or Kelly, who's that?
It'd be myself, Mayor. Thank you. As council is aware, we set various fees for the upcoming year in December as part of the budget process. One of those is one of the fees included in that process is our liquor license fees. As you are also aware, the governor's executive order back in March closed down bars, restaurants, and other on sale liquor establishments from being able to conduct business. As you are probably familiar, some communities have taken the action in regards to making adjustments to their liquor licenses to help alleviate the financial burden on businesses during the executive order or the stay-at-home order. This is the time that we particularly send out our liquor license renewals, as they do expire at the end of June. As liquor license period is from July 1 to June 30th. As we were preparing to put those notices out, we did talk internally about the 17 or 18 on sale facilities that were impacted by this, and included in your RCA are the names of those businesses and the annual fee that they have paid. Internal discussions amongst the department heads, finance director, assistant administrator, Steele and myself, we talked about the merits of consideration of what we are defining as a credit for the on sale, the liquor license businesses that were impacted the most through the stay-at-home order and will through the end of this month. As such, through discussions, the 20% credit that we are referring to equals to about the amount of time of a calendar year in which the business would be closed. We're looking to do it as a credit, not making or indication that their businesses were impacted during the current license period, and giving them a credit as equal to that amount of time that they were closed during the governor's executive order. We're presenting this tonight for council discussion and consideration. Should there be a consensus from the council to provide the proposed credit to those on sale businesses, we're asking you to take action and in this particular case for the on sale establishments, including the on sale tap rooms and wine and 3-2 beer. I'll entertain any discussion or questions that council may have.
Council, any questions? Brad?
I don't have a question. I would just give it my full support. If we can help, we should.
Everybody understands what the proposal is, and pretty straightforward, I guess. Hearing none, I would look for a motion then to approve 9B.
So moved.
Motion by Todd, second by Ken. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Cross,
Yes.
Holman,
Yes.
Licio,
Yes.
Abbott,
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes. That motion carries. We'll move on to 9C, review of local emergency and COVID-19 operational plan.
As the council is aware, back in March, we declared a local emergency in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic. With that, we had also adopted a operations plan to indicate how we're going to operate during that pandemic. As you are fully aware, I don't think any of us were thinking that this would last as long as it did. And with the governor's most recent executive order loosening up restrictions and allowing more and more Minnesotans to do business and go on with their lives, it does give us indication as to opening up operations in regards to a city as well. I want to take time tonight to discuss what the order means and or how it would be able to impact us as an entity. We're not under any obligation to thrust ourselves back into being open for business 100%. I did provide you with a memo earlier this afternoon, kind of outline where we're at from an administration standpoint in regards to the several topics. I'll briefly go over them, but hope that this evening we can have conversation and get an understanding where council is at in regards to the threshold of willingness to open up back to the public in regards to certain aspects of city government. I do want to note that as a staff, we're not recommending lifting or expiring the local emergency based on the fluidness of the situation. There is a need to respond in a timely manner. And so everything that is in the memo is reflective of changes or to the operations plan and not to the local emergency. In regards to the governor's orders, does allow for the opening of city hall or city facilities, things that nature. And so we really have 3 facilities in which are mostly were impacted by the declaration of closing public facilities. The first one is City Hall. You know, we are at a point where we're making adjustments to the physical or to the physical improvements to the facility to make sure that we are ensuring the health and safety of the public as well as our employees. We are we believe that those improvements will be completed by the end of this week. And so if there is an acceptance level of the council to reopen City Hall, we're suggesting that that take place on Tuesday, the first day of business next week. In regards to our Public Works and Water Treatment Facility, due to the nature of this facility and that fact that the facility is already limited with public access, we are intending to, or as staff, we're recommending that the facility remain closed to the general public, to everyone. In fact, other than the authorized city personnel and contracted service providers that are taking care of the equipment and the plant facility. The third facility that it was impacted by the order is our parks. As you know, we closed down park facilities, playgrounds, things that are not playgrounds, but facilities during the stay-at-home order. The order does lift those restrictions and allows for the reopening of outdoor recreation. The order does include a provision that it prohibits gatherings more than 10 people. If the council is to look at reopening our park facilities, our park superintendent, Alex Hondo, has indicated it'll take approximately 3 days to properly clean and prep the park facilities, including the installation of the league's recommended signage, disclosing sanitizing protocols, and that indicate that it's playing at own risk to the general public or anybody who utilizes our park facilities. Mr. Hondo has also indicated if the council is to proceed with opening the parks, that additional seasonal staff would be necessary to maintain the facilities, including opening and closing, as well as attending Whipple Beach, which I'll discuss or go into a little bit more detail here in a minute. It should be noted that in discussing opening up the parks, we did inquire in the private sector as to providing some of these maintenance needs within our facility. May that be temporary bathroom facilities or things of that nature. But it was found to be cost prohibitive, or not as, I shouldn't say cost prohibitive, but be more expense than having the seasonal help. So therefore, we're indicating or asking the council if you are to be open to opening the parks or reopening the park facilities, that we be permitted to start proceeding with hiring the necessary seasonal staff without advanced council approval. What we would do is ask for confirmation of that at a following meeting, a following council meeting. In addition to this, the opening up of parks, one area that I'd like to talk about is Whipple Beach. This is one area of our park system that will more than likely have a high probability of having gatherings more than 10 persons, as well as non-observation of the social distancing guidelines that are outlined by the CDC and the MDH. During the temporary closure of the facilities, we did observe an increase in uncollected trash and vandalism during that time. Wanted to note that hiring of seasonal help would assist with monitoring those activities during the day, but more than likely will not abolish those activities. We are intending to install signage near the beach to discourage the larger gatherings, and would have police monitor the park a little bit more frequently to serve as an additional deterrent. We'll continue to monitor the situation if the council, or monitor the situation if council were to open up the park, and we'll come forward with any additional changes any changes that would be necessary to attain compliance with the social distancing guidelines, as well as the compliance with the governor's order for larger gatherings. With that, I know we've had several discussions regarding pavilion, our park rentals and things of that nature. And in our last meeting, we did cancel the events or the scheduled rentals for May, based on the fact that gatherings are still not limited to or are allowed for more than 10 persons. We're recommending that the council continue to suspend park rental facilities so that we're not promoting or encouraging large gatherings, and in defiance of the governor's gathering limitation. We're also recommending that the cancellation of the 6 rentals that were registered prior to the adoption of our local emergency as well. I do want to note with that gathering of 10 persons being prohibited, we're still at a point where recreational programming cannot commence. We did discuss this back in April, and we discussed a tentative timeline for making a decision being June 1st. Being that we do have a council meeting scheduled for June 2nd, we're not asking you to take any action at this time. We'll do that come June 2nd. As it relates to city meetings, that being the city council or our city boards and commissions, the order that the governor executed last week does exempt government meetings from having to meet from the gathering limits of 10 individuals, but it does, the governor does strongly encourage that remote meetings be utilized whenever possible. According to the emergency declaration that we adopted in March, we did set that all meetings would be held electronically until it's determined that it is no longer practical or impractical or imprudent to have these in-person meetings. The allowance of the remote meetings has given the city the opportunity to conduct business, albeit in a modified manner that is safe and healthy for all participants while maintaining a level of transparency. If we are to resume in-person meetings, city staff is encouraging that we follow the social distancing requirements. In incorporating those guidelines would limit the attendance in the council chambers to be 23. That would be that would include the 5 council electeds, the administrator, the assistant administrator, and the attorney, leaving that's 8, so 16 people that would be able to be in attendance in adhering to that. So it does create challenges. While we're not opposed to resuming in-person meetings, we just want to bring that to the council's attention. We did discuss areas in which we can help out with the amount of people in attendance, but yet keep that transparency. Those are outlined in the memo. I won't go into detail on that. As council is aware, most of our meetings are not largely attended, with the exception when we have items on the agenda that may be of interest to a group of people or neighborhoods, may it be related to zoning or part of our infrastructure improvements that we do from time to time. As such, we'll continue to explore ways to make sure that we maintain public participation and communication during this as this pandemic carries on, should we go back to meeting in person. The other item that was included in the memo is a proposed amendments to our COVID operations plan that are above and beyond what I've just previously mentioned. In particular, it's identifying how we're going to do business as we reopen the doors of City Hall to the general public. The intent is to protect those that enter our facility as well as our employees as we try and get through the epidemic or through the pandemic. And those do have bullet points as to the general changes to the plan. And a copy of the proposed amendments are included with the memo that was emailed to you earlier this evening. So with that, hoping that we can have conversation as a council and seek direction from the council. If you are open to making changes to our operations and getting back to as close to a sense of normal as possible, what we're asking the council or what I'm asking the council is to determine if and what facilities we reopen. If you do open the parks, that we are able to have the authority to hire seasonal staff so that we can open up in a timely fashion. We need the council to make a decision in regards to the June park rentals. Like conversation and a determination as to if we need to make changes to the way we're conducting our city meetings. And then we're asking the council to approve the amended or the proposed amended COVID-19 plan. So with that, I'll stop there and ask the council if they have any questions.
I'm wondering if we should, Brad, if we should take it in chunks here, in sections, and maybe start with the park scenario. I was under the impression that maybe the way to go would be just to rent porta potties and leave our stuff closed. And then in researching that, it sounds like, and Brad's already kind of reiterated that it's more expensive to do that than it is to hire people and bring them back and open our own facilities. So it sounds like that's kind of a done deal, the way it's explained to me anyway. So then the question along with parks that is, what do you want to do about the pavilions? Our next benchmark date is the 2nd of June. Whether there'll be any new information from the governor as far as numbers of people and that type of a thing. But let's start with the pavilions. What are your thoughts there?
You looking for council comment?
I am. I've heard yours. That was a joke. Todd?
Your Honor, Council, I'm supporting, I think, what staff's recommendations were, that we can't do it without the ability to maintain. So I think if we open up those facilities, we've got to have the people that can help support the work. So I'm in favor of that opening with hiring of seasonals. I'm also in favor of canceling the reservations that were established, so that we aren't promoting greater 10 or greater gatherings. And we did that for May. And I'm assuming, do we have reservations in August too, or is it just June? Or I'm sure June and July, right?
Yeah, at the time that we put the suspension in place back in March, there were only reservations for May and June.
Yeah, that's where I am, is that it looks like it'll be a while before we get past that social distancing piece. And I think it's prudent to refund the people that registered for June.
Oh, if I'm in agreement with what Mr. Holman said, but I just want to clarify that doesn't mean we have to cancel July yet. Just
no.
Okay.
I agree. I think it's only fair to people to know that they're not going to be able to do it, so they can, we don't want to string them along either, so they can make other arrangements.
Your Honor, Council, what I really worry about, with regard to opening the parks and kind of what undue burden comes on city staff, whether it's police or seasonals or whomever's working in Whipple Beach in particular. I remember the great outcry and kind of dismay when Florida and Georgia opened up those big beaches and people just went crazy. They just went out there in droves and they didn't distance. And I guess I would defer to police and staff input about that, because we don't want to create that. But at the same time, I feel like the bathrooms should be open, and the parks should be open, but signed, I think, like the league is recommending, to you're at your own risk and to maintain distancing the way the governor has laid it out. I just don't know how to solve that beach thing, because I think people are gonna first 80 degrees, they're already there, but at 80 degrees, they're really gonna be there.
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yes.
I I guess at this point, if anybody has clarity on any of the executive orders, I'd love to hear it. But the problem with the beach is I think everybody's interpretation of a group of 10 is going to be a little bit different. So if we open up that facility, are we saying no more than 10 people beyond the playground onto the sand, or do they got to cluster in small groups of 10? You know, those are, as staff within our department, a few of the things we started kicking around the last couple of days, anticipating this might be coming too. And I don't know what the right answer is. You know, we can ask again. We do twice a week meetings with Department of Public Safety, but I don't think they know what the right answer is too. So I'm not pushing to not open. I'm just saying that we're going to be in a tough spot more than likely as a law enforcement group, because we're going to be asked to respond. And, you know, the first issue is the governor's come out and said, please educate, you know, don't enforce. Well, at Whipple Beach, does that mean everybody's going to leave? So I think there's a lot of issues that are going to be present specifically there, because Councilmember Holman's right. As it warms up the next couple of weeks here, it's going to get extremely busy. So just some food for thought from our end of it.
I don't know if this helps or not, but you know, when we talked about June 2nd, I don't know if anybody was watching the news at 6 o'clock tonight. Carol Levin did a bulletin that the governor at 2 o'clock tomorrow at his normal briefing is going to talk about relaxing restaurants and bars to a certain, nobody knows what he's going to say, but maybe there will be more. I don't know if that's going to trickle over into parks and beaches or anything like that, but there might be some more clarity tomorrow. I would certainly hope so. Certainly with those two subjects for sure. But so I don't know, Brad, if you think will be any smarter on the 2nd of June or.
In regards to social distancing and the larger gatherings, that's the question. That's the $1 million question is when is larger gatherings going to be allowed? As Chief Exted indicated, you know, that group of 10 doesn't include immediate family and things of that nature. So it does get to become a question. In the conversations that we've had internally with department heads or with the leadership team is that we know that the general public wants to be out and wants to be active, wants to enjoy what we know is the reason why most of us live here is because of the lakes and the outdoors during the summer months. But we're hoping that based on what has been educated over the last month and a half regarding the pandemic, and that people recognize that it is real, that they self-monitor themselves and adhere to those guidelines, and it doesn't require it. But as everybody has indicated, when you get to larger gatherings, you do have that challenge of having to do that. That's why in my memo, we indicate that we just need to continue to monitor it. And if it becomes more of a blatant defiance of the order or in regards to social distancing, then we might have to look at taking action, which may be even including closing the beach. But at this time, hoping that cooler heads prevail and that people maintain their social distancing and respect for other people's health and safety.
Todd.
Your Honor, Counsel, I would put full confidence in whatever Jim, Public Health, and others would decide would be the best way to interpret that. I wouldn't debate it. I completely understand that that's really difficult, but it sounds like, you know, it's being discussed, and if we get to that point, I don't have anything to offer that probably everybody hasn't already talked about. So I would support whatever staff would recommend it, even if it's just too complicated. We should just put the crime scene tape up and leave the beach closed, you know, even if it comes to that, but the park be open, but the beach be closed. You know, I'm sure you've thought of every scenario, but I'll just wish you luck on trying to define what that is.
And earlier in my presentation, I talk about the local emergency and not making any changes to that. The reason for that is the fluidness again of the pandemic and the changes that are made daily, weekly, in regards to the direction as to how we're to interpret, enforce, educate, the way we conduct business. It particularly changes from time to time. And you know, as the mayor indicated, if the governor was to loosen up restrictions even further or strengthen them, leaving the emergency declaration in place does allow for administration to make those in a timely fashion to assure that the safety and health of the general public are maintained. So
I think the sad part about this whole scenario, or one of them anyway, is that, you know, our police department has worked hard at building relationships in the community, and they have great rapport with young and old, and it just puts them in a bad position. You know, the governor's executive orders become law; they are law, and it forces law enforcement people to either break the law, ignore it, or be really, really bad people. And it's just not fair for Jim and his people. And I don't know what the answer is, because it's, you know, it's a lose-lose deal either way. It's for him to tell all of his officers ignore it. You know, I don't know. Other comments? Mark.
Well, I guess I understand the recommendations and go along with them, except for the fact of some of the park facilities. You know, you can casually say it's okay to let people know ahead of time, and so they can find some other place to go and have some birthday party or some get together. But what other place to go? I mean, if it's closed because there's more than 10 people, you can't have it anywhere. So if people adhere to the guidelines and do their social distancing and can limit it to 10 people, why can't it be open? So that's my take on it.
Okay, thank you. Other council members, any thoughts?
I guess I'll just say that I think that we need to have being nimble in mind as we do whatever it is we choose to do, just because like you mentioned earlier here, it takes one obstinate member of the public at the beach to turn a educational situation for a police officer into something that is forced into a situation none of us want. And I think we have to be able to end up knowing that the city council is going to have to be the group of people who end up being the bad guys, because we can't continually put our police officers in a position of having to enforce those things if we have issues popping up that we could prevent. Especially considering I just read a headline that there's 21 new cases in Brainerd right now. I just don't know that unwinding everything is guaranteed to continue on a linear path that way. So I'm open to following along that path at this point, but I'm not feeling comfortable that we're going to just continue opening more and more over time here in the shorter term.
Mayor?
Yes, Chief.
I think one of the things too, I'm not opposed to reopening, and I think with the emergency order, and Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, but with that emergency order, that would give Brad and myself the ability to review in the event that you move to open the parks and say we have a particular problem specifically with Whipple over the next 5-6 days, and and the governor doesn't relax anything, I think that give us the ability as staff to maybe go back in and close that particular trouble spot. I guess what I'm thinking or working through in my mind is a scenario where we get literally hundreds of people that are congregating on the beach and nobody's listening. And it's just a no-win situation. You know, I'm not opposed to trying to open the facilities. And I think we've got everything set up and in place where we could react in a fairly fluid manner if we need to. So Brad, would you agree or?
Yeah, I would agree. And it's in context to our local emergency declaration. That gives administration the ability to make adjustments to the adopted plans to protect the health and safety of the general public, correct?
So I guess I just wanted to throw that out there, Mayor. You know, I'm not against not opening anything. I want to start moving in that direction, but I think with, you know, we've all been in the deep freeze here for 6-7 months, and we've got some heat coming and a bunch of people that want to get out. I just see some potential issues at Whipple Beach that we may not be able to negotiate through, you know, a super large crowd with limited number of law enforcement, but the flip side is maybe everybody will be respectful and understanding, and I guess I'm kind of holding out hope for that too. So.
Do you have the authority to, if it's one bad apple, do you have the authority to remove that apple or?
Yeah, and you know, these executive orders come with a weird level of discretion that we've never had to deal with before. The analogy we've used is driving 31 miles an hour in a 30 is illegal, but we've never been that aggressive. You know, the social distancing, it's almost hard not to violate the order in some respects, but we're trying to educate and educate and educate. And for the vast majority of scenarios, people are understanding. They may grumble a little bit, but everybody's pretty understanding. It's just, you know, we've seen the videos from Florida or California or Texas. Not that Whipple Beach is in comparison to any of those, but 80 degrees, and the first time, you know, some of us have had the ability to get out, it could get quite busy. So.
Okay, thank you. Back to the administrator, if we look at these in pieces then, so for example, the idea of rebating people through June on the pavilions. Do you need a voice vote on that, or is this a consensus, or where are we at legally?
What I would do is get your thoughts and opinions on each. At the end of the memo, I outlay the 4 or 5 items that we need to make decisions on. I'll keep track of those during the conversation, and I'll summarize those at the end of our conversation, and someone can then make the motion and obtain a second for those proposed changes.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the building then. What are our thoughts there? Do we want to go a little bit longer on Zoom, or do we want to go back to the building? What are your thoughts and comments there?
I would prefer to be in the building again, but.
Your Honor, Counsel, I would prefer to be in the building again, but I would like to have some kind of technology that allows people to see us in the building and not have to be there physically, you know, so that something like this or some kind of media that, because I don't think, you know, I think if we'll always preserve, I'm assuming we're going to always preserve the right for people to submit their comments ahead of the meeting like we are now, and then they can be read into the meeting. That can happen whether we're there physically in the building or in a Zoom environment. But being able to kind of see and hear the meeting, I think is important. And if there's some way that the technology can kind of allow us to safely distance in the building and be seen by some technology, I think that would be helpful.
I would agree with that.
I think that's a necessary consideration, especially if we're forced to limit public participation to less than 20 people to begin with. Probably either want to continue along the Zoom line or go to what Mr. Holman's suggesting there.
No, go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say if we're gonna go back to building anytime soon, that we make some type of consideration for the sheltering in place also. So if there can be technology so that the public can see us, can there also not be technology where we can be a part of the meeting and not be there?
Yeah. I know Mr. DeBoer is trying to facilitate the motherboard in regards to this meeting, but if he's available, I know he's done some research in regards to technology. Don't know if he can turn on his mic and talk and outline what he found out.
Yeah, we just did some preliminary research with one of the local vendors who would assist with that. And I think the biggest issue is timeline, getting it in place. And there's a couple different levels of options, but we could certainly test, the minimal cost option anytime. And if that doesn't appear to work, we can look at, the next level and getting more of a semi-professional or, setup in place there.
And Todd, in regards to timing of that technology, can you summarize that?
Yeah, I think if we have to get new equipment, PC, capture card, all that stuff, I believe the second meeting in June would be the earliest, according to the vendor's timeline particularly.
But if we went the lowest option, which is try to do it with a phone, and see how the audio works on that, which is a question mark that you had.
Yeah.
Try that for the second, but if we were to go with that mid-level option, we would be looking at the second meeting in June. Is that correct?
At this time, that I believe that's correct. Yeah.
So with that, knowing that the lowest technology would be utilizing our tablets or phone in regards to doing a Facebook Live or having it through the YouTube channel, we can try that on June 2nd. But if we had to purchase equipment and install things, we'd be looking at the second meeting in June in order to have that ready. So looking for feedback from council in that regard.
Yeah.
If you had to spend the money on the equipment, would that be because the equipment then could be used forever? I mean, not just for this short-term need?
Some of it could be, we haven't really budgeted for a complete, true install professional system, but I believe some components could probably be reused once a temporary situation's over.
Yeah, Mark?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a legal question or not, but if we are out of state or out of town or whatever, is it possible, is there any reason why we cannot participate in the meeting?
I don't know. I don't know.
I will be out of town on the second meeting in June.
Gotcha.
But if the technology's there and if we can legally do it, I have no problem at all participating in the meeting. That's what technology is all about, right?
are we,
Do you know offhand what the statute? I do know that electronic meetings were prohibited for quite some time, even in the case of health emergencies or things of that nature, but it's been loosened up, and I do not have knowledge as to the extent of that. We can research it and provide you that, but I'll defer to Brad if he knows more than I do.
I know that we could vote tonight, for example, to allow, you need to vote for it. But if you have a majority of the council in city chambers and you allow by phone or Zoom for a council member to join, that's definitely legal. You need to do a voice vote like we're doing during the Zoom meetings now, but you can do that.
so say that we go ahead and do Zoom one more time. June meeting, we don't have to do anything, right? Because anybody can be anywhere with the Zoom, is that correct? Or
Correct.
Right.
I don't feel the urgency to make a real rash decision. I'm okay with going one more meeting the way we are, if that helps with better decision making and better cost projections, that type of a thing. I'm anxious to get back in the building too. Don't get me wrong. I think it's just a better scenario, but I think life would go on. Todd.
Your Honor and Council, I think in my mind, there are a couple of things going on here. One is citizens being able to participate, watch, and see, maybe even comment, during a council meeting, and the technology that allows that. I think there's importance, the whole discussion of can or should council members be able to remotely participate here forward outside of an emergency. That's a whole kind of discussion or debate by itself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm in the camp of you don't get elected and then never show up, to your committee assignments just because you can click in. That's my own opinion. Many might differ with that opinion, for the sake of participation. So I think there are a lot of kind of pieces and nuance to that argument, but I think that's a standalone separate discussion that should be on like a workshop to kind of discuss the pros and cons of that. Outside of, this is an emergency situation, this is how we're doing it for public safety and our best shot at trying to provide accessibility. But when we come back, which we will, that whole how do council members or electeds participate is kind of a standalone. I view that as a standalone conversation for a later date.
Mark?
Yeah, with that in mind, that's fine. As long as the governor has this emergency in place, then I would say we keep going on Zoom. It seems to be working fine.
I think I agree with that line in terms of just making it simple, including, we haven't really talked about, and maybe Brad, you have an opinion on this, but I believe one of the suggestions of reopening all these things is that it's suggested that people wear masks if they're going to be indoors together, even if you can social distance indoors. So detail issues like that might be something we would need to hash out and decide how we're going to handle before we go into moving back into City Hall anyway. I guess to some extent too, unless you're hearing that the public isn't happy with this during this time period and wants us in City Hall, this seems to be maybe even a little bit more open to the public than City Hall was before the emergency.
Thank you. Todd?
Your Honor, I agree. I like the idea of using the governor's emergency time as our time too. It links the city to the state. So I can buy that rationale and support that, so we don't have to ask the question every week or every other week, that when the governor's emergency authority ends, then ours would, or something like that. So they're linked together.
I can support that. I just miss all of you.
Yeah. To Zach's comment about setting the example. In fact, I'd asked the city, what's that guy's name? The city administrator this afternoon when I was reading through this stuff. You know, social distancing, even if we come back, is still important. Are we going to wear masks? Are we going to sit in the city hall with masks during our council meeting? I'm not saying yay or nay, but there's a certain amount of being the example and setting the example. So if we're preaching this gospel and we mean it, and we have a council meeting and we're in the chambers, we're social distancing, then should we be wearing masks? And the answer probably is yes. I don't necessarily like the idea, but Mark?
Yeah, I think we ought to wait till we get back into council chambers, because the mask, no mask thing has changed so many times in the last 2 months. It's probably going to change yet again.
Yeah. Well, I voice of one. I'm for sure in favor of going, one more meeting for sure, and see what the governor says tomorrow. Maybe 2 more meetings. Things start happening fast as long as everybody's doing the right things, and maybe a lot of this stuff will take care of itself. So that's just one opinion.
So if I understand, the consensus would be is that we don't make any adjustments to in-person meetings at this time, and that if the governor's order expires, we can make that action on the 2nd, or if it's still in place, we'd wait until such time that that governor's order has expired. Is that correct?
I see some thumbs.
Okay.
One of the things that's going to be coming up, and we don't need to discuss tonight, but we're going to have to have neighborhood meetings for feasibility reports and how we're going to handle those numbers. Again, we don't have to decide that tonight, but there'll be probably bigger issues coming down the pike as far as social distancing and that kind of a thing. But you got what you need for now, Brad?
In that regard, yes.
Okay.
In regards to city facilities, did do a quick outline in regards to, we talked about the parks, but we did not talk about City Hall.
Okay. Yep.
In the context of, we are making those physical adjustments to our facility, such as putting plexiglass at the counter, marking out where people should stand while they're waiting in line for service, as well as other items that are outlined in our operations plan. I think Councilmember Tabbitt indicated, there is provisions in there that we strongly encourage the public. That is in direct reference to to wear a mask. That is in almost verbatim as to the governor's order. He strongly encourages that anybody out in public wear a mask in that regard. But in regards to city staff, we are promoting and continuing to promote those that are telecommuting to continue to telecommute to maximize social distancing and safety. But those that are at City Hall, we will provide masks so that when they're conducting business with the public, as well as when they're moving around City Hall, when they're away from the workstations, that they do that to protect their fellow employees. Mark.
Are you going to provide masks for the public that come in? I mean, if we're going to require a mask, are we going to provide the mask for the public?
That's why we're indicating strongly suggest. We're not making masks available. We don't have an abundance of supply. What we are trying to do is provide those for our employees and for our first responders, or for PD staff.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions?
I think the measures for City Hall are in line and make sense.
Staff has done a lot of work, and put a lot of thought into this and was in there today for a few minutes and it looks good.
And there's still some work that we still need to do in order to be prepared for Tuesday if council votes or motion or approves opening City Hall on Tuesday, the 26th. In regards to our operations plan, which is the last item, we pretty much summarized most of it. And what's been referenced as governor indicating that they need to have businesses have to have an operations plan or a preparedness plan. The amendments that are outlined in our operations plan do meet the spirit and intent of that. So we'd be following the same guidelines that the state is advising private businesses as they reopen to have in place for their customers and their employees. So with that, I think that's the only other item. And if council wants me to summarize, would indicate, I would just summarize our conversation is that the council would motion to approve opening up City Hall on Tuesday, the 26th, that parks would be open as quickly as possible and that the city staff has the authority to hire seasonal staff in advance of a council approval to make sure that we are doing what we need to in the parks, and that in-person meetings would resume until the governor's order expires. And then lastly, that the council would approve the operation plan amendments that are included in the council's memo this evening.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Mark, second by Connie. Any further discussion?
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
So does that mean as far as the public allowed into City Hall, you'd have to limit them to the 50% of the occupancy load of the lobby?
Yeah, what we have done is we've marked out X's on the floor as to people who are being served, or the person being served at the counter, as well as 3 additional individuals that could sit in the lobby and maintain social distancing.
Okay.
Then from that point forward, if there's additional people, we're asking them to wait outside or wait in their vehicles until there's someone exiting the building and they can put themselves into the place in line.
Okay.
And they've removed the chairs in there and they're going to cover the drinking fountain. And so there's not a loitering scenario there either. So I think we got that pretty well covered. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, roll call.
Cross,
Yes.
Holman,
Yes.
Licio,
Yes.
Tabit,
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes. Maybe Brad, I asked Brad today how things were, how the public is receiving what we're doing, how the service is going. I asked a quick question about the permit scenario, because that's usually what we've heard in the past as a complaint. And if you could just tell them what you told me about how that process works.
Sure. Obviously, the amount of information that needs to be submitted with a permit varies based upon the complexity of the work, new construction, things of that nature. There's a lot of checks and balances there. But what we've directed and Department Head Doty Community Development Director Doty has implemented to it with his staff is that over the counter permits, provided that we have the information and we know that payment's been made, is that giving permission of that contractor to do the work. And over the counter permits are shingles, siding, things that don't need to have explanation of the work being done because it's or limited amount of detail in regards to the work being done, and that they would to schedule inspections as they normally would, based on the fact that our permitting, our assistant, administrative assistant within the department is working from home. We do have a method in which the permits that are received, are permit applications that are received, are scanned in and sent to the employee so that that can get processed. To date, I think we've had maybe 1 or 2 complaints that from a contractor, but for the most part, everybody's been understanding. I don't know if you have anything additional to add, Josh?
No, I think it's going, with all things being considered, I think pretty smooth. We did have a couple calls, just frustration that it wasn't instantaneous, as if when you walk in to City Hall for an over-the-counter permit, you could walk out. But we're basically for those same over-the-counter permits, we're working generally, unless it was submitted very late in the day, we're working on same day scenario for over-the-counter permits. And those permits, they may drop off the permit and the fee through our lockbox, but they're emailed the permit generally pretty shortly. And we've had, like I said, I think there were just 2 frustrated people that after communicating with them, I think there was some level of understanding, but it's generally been pretty well received how we've been operating.
Yeah, well, I was encouraged in that they can go ahead and start the project. That's been a complaint over the years, is I have to wait all these days, you know, to get this permit. And it sounded like it was maybe faster than it was than it was in good times. And so I was encouraged to hear that. All right, we'll move on. Council comments. Connie?
Your mic is muted. There you go.
No, I think I'm good. Just a feel-good feeling for me anyway, driving around the neighborhoods. It's just so uplifting to see all the signs in the yard, whether it's supporting someone who's a frontline worker at one of the hospitals or congratulating a graduate, or it just feels real positive. And to actually drive down the street and saw, oh, a nurse lives there or a teacher lives there. It's just, I don't know. I thought that was pretty uplifting.
Yeah, thank you. Zach?
No comment.
Okay, Todd?
Your Honor, Council, I would just share, it's been interesting through this quarantine and kind of how businesses do business, kind of learning how adaptive and quick the business community has been to, you know, allow ordering remotely and curbside service. I had to move a piano this last weekend, so I had to go to General Rental or rental cart or to rent carts. I called in, they sent me the invoice. I signed it with my finger on my phone. It went back. I showed up. They met at the door, just like takeout food, loaded it in my car. The minute it was back, I got a confirmation invoice receipt, you know, that showed that I had paid. It was just amazing to me that how quickly things, you know, turned to be that automated and that really COVID virus safe, you know, in a very short time. So that was just one example, but I would give that shout out to really all the businesses that have had to make some kind of modification like that, and they really have. And as they open new doors due to lessening some of the restrictions, I think we're just going to continue to see more and more of that innovative kind of entrepreneurial abilities that small business has to do that kind of thing. I'm so impressed by how all of that has happened in such a very, very short time, including our own. So my hat's off. The last thing I wanted to say was super excited to see the Facebook and the project updates. I'm a wonk for projects. I've always been a wonk to, you know, want to go out and see them and track the progress. And those web reports that the contracting engineers do are just top drawer, great maps. And so please pass that on to our contractors that are working with the city on projects. The only one that's missing is the Jasper Woods School. And I know that that's not such a, you know, city part of the project. You know, most of that city work is done, but that's the only kind of big project that isn't on that list. So maybe that's on the school district site and I just haven't seen it, but thank you.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I guess I want to echo Todd's comments as far as business adapting. You know, it's an interesting time. the I think we're seeing our businesses adapt because our businesses have to adapt. I don't know if very many businesses can sit idle for 60 days, pay their rent, pay all their expenses and utilities, and not have any income. So whatever we can do to exert any kind of pressure as to opening things and promoting our businesses and backing our businesses and, you know, propping them up, and refunds like we did tonight on the 20%, that we need to continue to look for those types of things, because you know, we're going to come out of this and we're not going to have all the businesses that we did have before, because, you know, 60 days is a long time to go without income. So that's my comment. Good luck to everyone, and, you know, hang in there.
All very true, very true. And the only thing I would add is that I just appreciate the way our residents have participated. And I'm hoping that we'll continue to do that, so the Chiefs' life doesn't get miserable at Whipple Beach and all of those other. If everybody will chip in and help like we have, and they have. And I know people didn't like putting masks on to go to Costco. They don't like putting masks on to go to Menards, and that's a freedom that everybody can enjoy. But people have done it, maybe grudgingly, but they've done it, and you know, it won't last forever. So I just appreciate everybody being involved and helping out our city, our community, and to Mark's point, our businesses too. So thank you, everybody. City Administrator.
Yes, just two items. First one, as you are all aware, the one item that was had my attention during the legislative session was our LCCMR funding for the land acquisition for the project that we refer to as Whiskey Creek. As you know, based upon the events down in the Capitol related to the governor's orders, and there wasn't a bonding bill. Not much related to supporting projects has been passed before the conclusion of the session. That does create some concern for city staff. There is hope that in a special session that both parties will be able to come together and be able to adopt a omnibus bill that includes LCCMR project funding. With that being said, we are trying to look at all scenarios. One of the scenarios is that we don't get funded. The LCCMR staff and their executive officers have extended their 2021 legislative session applications for the 60 some projects that I believe were in the queue for award this session to be able to submit application for the following legislation and that has to be done by Friday. Unless there is any objection from the council, our intentions are to resubmit as based on the importance of this project and knowing that we're seeking other funds. If we do not have LCCMR to help with the acquisition, the other funding opportunities will be more of a challenge to obtain. So just unless there is no objection, I'm gonna work with our partners, and particularly the Minnesota Headwaters Board, and getting an application in as a safety net should we not get an answer in the affirmative of funding with the special session. The other item, I apologize, I intended to have it as a line item on the agenda, but those of you that I've spoken with over the last week, the Chamber of Commerce or the local chambers of commerce, several of them, as well as the Crow Wing County administration, has been working to put together an initiative known as Lake Country Cares. It's a regional collaboration, as I indicated, that is to assist and help businesses prepare to reopen. in a safe manner once they're allowed to through the governor's orders. It is essentially a safety campaign that is intended to help businesses adopt good safety practices for their safety, the safety of the employees, as well as their customers. Their goal or intent is to prepare businesses to be able to operate with a more of a safety umbrella that will assist to alleviate the concerns for their customers about their safety when they're shopping in their stores. With that, I know the mayor did attend the webinar last week, as I did. They are looking for local units of government to help them endorse this. About 50 minutes before the meeting, I forwarded via email the literature in which they had provided us late last week. In regards to endorsing it, there is no obligation from a financial standpoint or anything of that nature. What the endorsement would do would lend the organization the right to utilize our logo in their promotional materials and on their website, indicating that we support their efforts, and then in return that we are doing our part to promote what they're trying to do. May that be sharing their news releases via social media or on our website, that we use their logo in return, and that we be active participants in their public events and things of that nature. I know it's out of the cold, and I sent it 50 minutes ago, or 50 minutes before the start of the meeting. But if there's any reservation, I'll not do anything and put it on the council agenda for the 2nd to formally take action. But looking for some council insight as to, I shouldn't say insight, but consensus that the city is willing to endorse this campaign and give me the authority to allow for the use of the city logo.
Can I just ask a question? Do you people all get the chamber's emails? They come quite regularly. And I know that, a lot of this stuff happens during the day and not everybody can do it. I happen to be retired, so I try to join in as often as I can. This last one that Brad's talking about really was, I think, was just absolutely excellent. And it's excellent because it's not just the chamber. It's the county joining in, it's business people, people that are involved in a lot of things in our community. And by the time they got done, it just had a positive ring for me. And I'm not that easy to convince sometimes, but I was really impressed with it. And I think that this is something that we should grab a hold of and again, voice of one, but I think that we should endorse it and get our brand on there along, to Mark's point, get our brand on there along with others supporting our businesses. Just as a plug, I think there's another one tomorrow. I think it was the 20th. We just got that email here, and if it works out for you to join in that, I think you'll get another dose of what it's all about, and I think it might help you too. So if that works for you. So I guess you're looking for not a motion, just a thumbs up, or what?
Well, I think if the council is generally supported, knowing that I didn't provide you the information in a timely manner, I completely understand if you want to hold off. But in the context of showing just general support, I would ask that motion be made so that we are officially on record of endorsing the Lake Country Cares program.
I look for a motion then from anybody.
I'll make that motion.
I would make that motion. You want to fight about it?
I'll give the second to Mark. Any further discussion? I would just say, let's not wait 2 more weeks. Let's do it and get our support behind them. All in favor, say aye. Or excuse me, roll call.
Roll call. Cross.
Aye.
Holman.
Yes.
DCO.
Aye.
Abbott.
Yes.
And Olson.
Yes. Very good. Anything else, Brad?
That is all.
Okay, city attorney.
Looking for a motion to go into closed regarding a pending litigation matter.
So
I'll make
moved.
that Motion,
Mark, second by Connie. Roll call.
Cross,
Aye.
Holman,
Yes.
Licio,
yes.
Abbott,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes. And with that motion, then, for those of you that are still listening to us, we're going to go into a closed session. We will come back out of that closed session, though, if you want to hang in there. So, yeah, I was just going to say, Mr. DeBoer, you need to tell us when we're safe here.
You will receive an invitation to join the closed session. Click on that and
Looks like we're back, huh?
Yes.
Okay, city attorney?
Based on consensus in closed session, I would recommend a motion to ratify and approve the proposed settlement for the Brian Muir assessment project.
So moved.
Motion by Cross,
Second.
second by Holman. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Cross,
Aye.
Holman,
Yes.
Licio,
Yes.
Tabit,
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes. Anything else we need to talk about?
I do not think so.
What was that, Brad? Todd?
So, nope.
Yeah, Your Honor, on the same project, and this is a conversation that I think Brad and I will touch on tomorrow, but there is, I don't know if the whole council is aware or where we're at with this, but if you'll remember way on the end of Camwood, there was a person that is second tier, they're not right on the street. And so I think the determination is that this is one of those, how do we kind of clean up the lots actions that we took 2 or 3 meetings ago. But what I think is, Brad, do you want to describe what the scenario is? I think the situation is there's a street assessment, but there's no way or authority for a utility use easement, so the person physically can't access the street, even though they're with sewer and water utility, but they are a driveway. And my question for us is, because it's not in the plan now, is should the city be paying for that stub out of sewer and water for the future eventuality of somebody hooking up? I just can't get my head around that one site being a septic and well site when the sewer is less than 100 feet away. But I don't know, Brad or Trevor, do you guys want to?
Well, yeah, I can, as Councilmember Holman has alluded to, is when we did the assessment review committee, we did identify, based upon a inquiry by one of the property owners on Camwood, that there is a parcel that sole frontage is on County Road 48 in an area that the sewer and water main was not being extended. But based upon, and Mr. Person can correct me if I'm wrong, merely has an ingress egress easement in order for them to have a driveway that does come onto Camwood Trail. Based upon the title search that Mr. Person and his staff had done, indicated that it was just merely that and not for utilities. Based on that manner, we as staff were looking to, as we were contemplating with the other areas of assessment in regard to changes, is starting an assessment hearing process for street assessment for that lot, because that property owner does benefit the improvements that are being done on Camwood Trail. But being that the easement does not allow for the use of that for utility purposes, we weren't going to proceed with that any further. What Councilmember Holman is indicating is, do we incur the expense in putting a 2-inch stub in with the hope or in the future that there would be a connection there moving forward based upon the reasons why he has stated. So with that, from a staff standpoint, we haven't looked at making those changes. But I don't know if you have anything to add, Brad Person or Trevor, in regards to that specific situation.
I see head shaking. No. Or Trevor?
I was just gonna add that I haven't had Brian Drown look at it since we found out that information. So Brian and I'll now take a look at it. I mean, what is the best way to service that property? And let's take a look at the water and sewer. We still have a little bit of time before they'll be on the north end of Camwood Trail. We got a few weeks. So let's take a look at it and we'll come back and talk again.
Okay.
We definitely need to do the assessment for the street though.
Yeah, and your honor, council and staff, my hope is that, even if it's the city's cost, they don't have access today, for a sewer water utility hook up that property. But boy, if I were a buyer, I would be working hard to buy that access through the easement, to get the city services. But that's just me. But if somebody does that in the future and we don't have the stub outs, then we got a big chunk of the road dug out again, and future kind of trouble, I think, or way bigger costs in the future to do that kind of hookup than what we could do now, as part of the project. But I recognize the city would be likely eating that cost on the front end.
Okay. Did we have a motion and a second to adjourn?
I don't think we did.
Okay, just looking for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Oh, no.
Sorry about that. I made it all through tonight until now. Roll call.
Did we have a motion and a second on the close?
No.
On the
I'll move
adjournment?
to close.
Second.
Not to close, I mean to adjourn, yes.
I thought we did, but maybe not.
So Zach and who was the second?
Mark,
Mark.
Zach and Mark. I'll do roll call. Cross,
Aye.
Holman,
Yes.
Licio,
yes.
Abbott,
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes. I think we had a motion, a second, and Todd hijacked my adjournment there, so. Thanks, council, for hanging in there and for your due diligence, and have a good rest of the week. Thank you.